American Airlines and TSA denied me taking my firearm on a flight. Let me tell you why, folks. Hang with me on this one and I'll give you the details. What's up, y'all? It's GreatMan47 coming back at you with another video. Thanks for coming back and welcome back to my channel. Hey, I appreciate everybody making comments and also viewing these videos that I'm putting out. Do me a favor, make sure you like and subscribe. Also hit the little bell so that you get notifications anytime I put out content. So I'm going to give you some inside details or tell you about my experience of traveling with a firearm recently. And when I tell you about this, I want you to pay close attention to some of the things that I'm telling you, because I don't want you to have the same experience that I had. So last week I needed to take a trip to sunny Florida. And for those of you that are watching from Florida, I'm jealous. But anyway, I had to take a trip to sunny Florida for a couple of different reasons. And like always, I travel, even when I'm on the airline, I take a firearm with me. So this particular time, I did the same exact thing that I normally do on a regular basis. I used the same exact container to pack my firearm in and to have it checked in a checked bag. But this time, I actually ran into a snag. So I'm gonna give you the inside details. So as I arrived to Florida, I decided I was going to do a quick video just on how to fly with a firearm for those of you guys that might not know or be aware of what that process looks like. So I did it. And then I actually finished up the video while I was in Florida, loaded it on YouTube, and then shortly after, I had to actually remove that video simply because some things kind of went wrong for me at the airport, which is what I'm going to get into. The case that I normally travel with my firearm is this one. This is the case that my Sig Sauer P320X Compact came in. I also have another one very similar that I also use, but for the most part recently I've been using this case. And so one of the things that you have to know about traveling with a firearm is that it has to be locked inside of a hardback case and then also placed in a check bag. So obviously you don't have an option to put a firearm in a carry-on bag, so you have to put it in a check bag. But inside of the check bag, it needs to be inside of a hard case, which is locked and cannot be opened without the lock or combination, whatever kind of locking mechanism that you have. But anyhow, this particular case has two holes, and you can see them right here. Two holes for locks, and I have two locks on, one on each one of the holes, and they're TSA approved locks. I picked these locks up for about $5, I think, for the set. I believe at Walmart. And so I use those to keep this case locked along with the latches that are a part of the case itself. And I usually will have inside of it what you're allowed to have inside of it, which is the firearm itself, and it needs to be empty. There should not be around in the chamber. Both magazines or any magazines that you have accompanying that firearm inside this case have to be empty. And if you have ammunition, the ammunition must be in a separate container inside of the case as well and locked. And when you go to the ticket counter, you have to say to them that you have a firearm and you have it in the bag that you plan to be checked. And typically what they'll do is ask you at some point to bring that firearm out so that they can check it and inspect it. Happened to be every time I've taken the firearm to a place, from one place to another on an airline. The difference is some airports or airlines will actually have you open up your case right there at the ticket counter, while other times, or other airlines or airports, and I'm not sure which one it depends on, they'll actually have you go to the TSA part of the airport where they have the big oversized bags and things like that that typically go there. And then they will check it, and then if they clear it, they will check the bag for you. All right, so the inspection starts. So she took the case, she looked at the case, she saw the locks there, and she proceeded to open the latches, which is what they typically do. And as she started to look at it, as you can see right here, even with these locks on it, you can open it about this much without really like trying to break it. All right, you couldn't touch the firearm. The firearm was here in the middle. I had a smaller firearm. I had the P365, so it was here. You couldn't actually touch it, but just because you could open it up this much on either side, she said that this just wasn't going to pass. All right. So again, I have been doing this for quite a long time with this case and another case that operates exactly the same as this case does. So once she finally finished inspecting this case, she said to me, this case will not be permitted on the aircraft. And so, obviously my eyes got big and I'm wondering why, and I asked her why, and so she proceeded to explain that since this can be opened up, even just this much, it's not going to pass and that it's not meet regulations. So, obviously I had conversations back and forth with her, just trying to figure out how this happened, how, I was allowed to actually use this very case in a number of different flights. And so, just let her know that, this has been approved before I even went to TSA, and TSA themselves just a week ago had actually allowed me to use this case to get this firearm to Florida, and they inspected it themselves. So to make a long story short, she was not willing to bend. She actually called the manager over just to see, or a supervisor, just to see if that supervisor agreed or disagreed, and that supervisor absolutely agreed. And so one of the things that they told me I could do is go see someone from TSA and see if they would approve it. They said they really didn't think that they would, which once she said that, I was pretty certain that they wouldn't either. But I did. I went over to TSA and talked to a supervisor from TSA who also said that, I'm not even going to come up to the counter simply because the airline makes that call, and if they make that determination, we don't override it. Because if it's a failure to meet expectations on the part of me and the firearm that I'm bringing, then there could be a heavy fine for the airline as well as me. And she quoted some number of upwards of $12,000 or $13,000. So they were not willing to take that risk. So I did have a conversation with her about the inconsistencies of TSA from a number of different airports that I've flown in and out of. And she did agree that there are some inconsistencies. But she said some facilities or some airports are willing to take chances, but they're simply not. And that Jacksonville is extremely strict, maybe even in comparison to some others. So, I'm just kind of like, stuck here because I'm trying to get back home, and I have this firearm that they're not permitting to travel with me that obviously I can't leave here. So one of the things that she said that I could do, because apparently this happens quite often in Jacksonville, they have people who come through there with firearms in cases that pass in other airports, but they're just not going to allow it to pass. She said, we're going to recommend that you go to Walmart or Dick's, and there is one of each right down the road from here. Because we're just not going to let this case that you have be put on a commercial airline. All right, so now keep in mind, my plane was scheduled to depart at 6:30 a.m. So I arrived at the airport about 5:15 or so, 5:10. But about 5:30 is when all this took place. So now I'm sitting here like it's 5:30, my plane leaves at 6:30. How is it possible for me even to get to Walmart and back, or Dick's and back, and make this flight? And we quickly determined that wasn't going to happen. So what she did was she booked us on a flight that was a little bit later. It was actually an 11:30 flight. So it's about 5:30. I'm looking up information on this Walmart on my phone, find out that Walmart doesn't open till 7 and Dick's doesn't open till 9. So, I'm sitting there from 5:30 to almost 7, and then, maybe 6:45 or so, I take a lift over to Walmart. And I get to Walmart, I'm looking, I'm trying to find different things that they have that is TSA approved, or just something more secure than the box that I actually have. And one of the boxes that they recommended, and again, here we go, they recommended exactly what I purchased simply because they've recommended this to a number of people because I think this happens quite often in Jacksonville. And so she knew exactly what to recommend and knew that Walmart would have it, and they did. Also, while we were there, in the midst of all of this, another one of the agents, I think it was an American Airlines agent, came up and was talking to us about the process and said that Jacksonville is actually a training center for TSA and some of the other airlines in terms of processes and procedures like firearms. So they're extremely strict, and they just follow the rule book to the letter, which I'm okay with. I mean, if that's going to make flying safer, I'm not arguing that by any means. My only issue is, hopefully they can make sure that other, TSA as a whole can make sure that other facilities are doing the same, just so that people aren't doing what they think works and then going to Jacksonville or some other airline and it not working, and now you're stuck. Anyhow, I digressed a little bit. So I get to Walmart, I find what I'm looking for, I find exactly what they recommended, which is what I'm going to show you here. And then I took another lift back to the airport. This is the box that they actually recommended for me. And like I said earlier, they knew exactly what to tell me to get because they've done this a number of different times. But anyhow, this box has a combination on it, and then just a little turn knob that allows you to unlock the box once the correct combination is entered. So they make ones with keys instead of a combination. So there are different variations of this box. And so this isn't the only kind of box that they recommended. They recommended the other ones they also have the snap latches as well, but they're more like a Pelican box. If those of you that are familiar with Pelican, they're kind of more like a Pelican box, and Walmart did also have that as well, but I chose to get this one. So when you put the combination in, you just kind of turn this little knob and then it opens up. And then inside the box, it is just foam, and then you have your latch here, and you have your mechanism that allows you to change the combination as well. So as you can see, this is a SIG P365, which is a relatively small subcompact pistol. So this particular box isn't very large. So if I was going to carry something larger, it would make this pretty difficult to carry. Now, right now, I have this magazine inside of the pistol, but I believe they typically have you remove that magazine, and so they should both be out, and they should both be empty, which these are, as well as the gun itself. All right, so it is clear and safe. All right, so this is what it is that they recommended. This is what I bought. Again, 18 bucks, not a bad buy. And they actually, there were like 3 agents that came over once we actually got this system, once I got this system and presented it to them, and they said, we wish everybody had these types of boxes. These are the best kind. Once they're closed, you cannot pry them open. You just have to make sure that everything is in there fitting flush. And like they said, we can't pry these open at all, like I showed you on my softer hard case, but this one you can't pry open at all. It has a combination right here. When I bought it, the packaging on it said TSA approved, so I actually used this. Obviously it worked. So once I did that, she inspected it, she opened it up, she inspected it, and closed it back up, and then she put a little tag on the top of it that says that it was inspected. And on the back side of that tab that said it was inspected is my signature, just agreeing that I am declaring this to be a clear, safe, unloaded firearm. Okay, so that was also attached to here as well. And so she put it in the bag. Once we were done, she put it in the bag and checked the bag, and that was it. I was fine. I did make the 11:30 flight, but there was some hassle, obviously some hassle and just headache, leading up to that. So I'm just trying to hopefully prevent some of you guys from the same type of headache. All right, so real quick, let's review the process so that we make sure that we're aware of what the process looks like. So number one, make sure that you have a case that is hard-sided, that can be locked, whether it's locked with with locks or locked with a combination mechanism or a key, but make sure it does lock. Also, make sure that it is not a case like this that can be pried open a little bit, because I was told that if they can even just get their pinky finger in there like that, they would not allow it to be put on the airline. So make sure that whatever case you decide, it has a mechanism that locks up so that they cannot, if it is closed and locked, they cannot at all get inside of the case, not even their fingertips. Okay, so that's number one. Number two is that this must fit inside of a check bag or be in a case that can be checked by itself. If you do decide to have it in a case that's going to be checked by itself, it's going to cost you an extra fee of a check bag. So I think the check bag fee for American Airlines, when I just flew on American Airlines, it was $30. So had I got one of those Pelican cases, and if it would not have fit inside of my check bag, it would have been an additional $30 fee. So make sure if you just have one gun, like a compact or subcompact, you have it in a case small enough to fit into a check bag. There's no extra cost to do that. All right. Keep in mind it cannot, and I repeat, cannot be kept in a carry-on bag or anything like that. You would definitely not make it through security with a firearm in a carry-on bag, and then you'll be subjected to federal penalties, fines, and things like that if you were to try to take a firearm through security in a checked bag, or in a carry-on bag. So make sure it's in a checked bag. The next thing that you have to remember is that they're going to inspect it. They're going to make sure it's unloaded, no ammunition inside of the magazines as well as inside the chamber. Also, one of the other things that happened while I was there is that I had my ammunition in just kind of a little range bag with a zip cord on it. And like I said, I've been doing that for years, and it worked, or for a long time, and it worked. Jacksonville did not take that. They said that your ammunition must be in the original packaging that it comes in, or some other packaging or container that allows each one of those individual bullets to be stored in it. So they do make plastic containers that allow you to put each round in its own little compartment. So you're going to need something like that. The reasoning behind that is that ammunition's combustible. If it something happens and it's contacted the wrong way, there's a possibility it could discharge. So anyways, make sure that you have a container where each individual round is stored separately, similar to what the box that it normally comes in, a box like that. So they did take my ammunition. I was not allowed to take the ammunition either, which 22 rounds is what I had, so 9mm, so not a big deal. I gave that over. I was happy to be able to get my firearm on board. All right, so next, keep in mind that when you arrive at your destination, your bag is not going to be on the belt that it typically would be on at baggage claim. It's going to have a red tag on it that says return to BOS, which is Baggage Service Office. I believe that's what it stands for, but it does say return to BOS. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to go to the Baggage Service Office, which is located at baggage claim, usually at one end or the other of baggage claim. And then you just walk in there and tell one of the agents that you have a bag, you just got off a flight, you have a bag that has a firearm, and then they either have already sent someone to go get it or they will. And once they bring it back, you show your ID, it matches up with the tag on your bag, and then you're free to go with your firearm. So just keep in mind that it won't be in the general public on the belt. All right, guys, thanks for riding with me on another one. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel grow. Also, don't forget the little notification bell so that you are notified every time I put out content. All right, like I always say, guys, if you ain't packing, you're slacking. Make sure you stay safe, watch your six, and I'll see you when I see you.